things don't always go exactly as planned, do they? In fact, sometimes in schoolwork, they rarely do because stuff happens. School happens, but we have to own it, learn from it, and conquer the curves. That's our topic on the Educators Among Us podcast.
Welcome to the Educators Among Us podcast, where we share motivational messages and inspiring stories for and about educators. Your host, Scott Barron, is author of the critically acclaimed book, Love 'Em and Lead 'Em, and provides powerful insights and wisdom for those who heed the call to teach, coach, lead, and serve at all levels of education.
This is Scott Barron, and I'm honored to be your host for the Educators Among Us podcast. This is a different program because we love educators, and our passion, even our conviction, right, is to how can we make life better for educators, for those who have been given the gift to teach or to coach or to be a part of other people's lives as educators do, right? And we are speaking of educators at all levels, in all genres. We use that term just to describe that, man, educators span such a wide range of different types of schools and different countries and different states and different communities and different regions and different levels within the school, different roles of teachers and coaches and staff members and those who take care of the facilities and those who drive the buses and those who work in the offices. And it's a beautiful thing when we come together as a team, where we look out for each other and we especially trust each other, right? Because we know that like going on a journey, if you've been on a road trip lately, maybe you did over spring break or other times where you've been on a road, and sometimes we encounter some pretty significant curves. Right. I actually enjoy driving the curves. It's sometimes it drives Tammy crazy in a way because I'll take those curves a little bit too quickly because it's just kind of fun, right? And by the time we're done, she could be kind of nauseous because of having taken those curves, and so she's always telling me, slow down and take it easy. And so, but the curves, right? We do encounter those, and it's something that requires some very conscious and intentionality around what do we do with those, because there's always that sign you come across when you're coming into some curves. It'll say, caution, curves ahead, right? And the idea is, of course, if you don't slow down, if you're not aware of what's coming, you could run into some dangerous situations. You could actually get hurt, and that's what can happen as well as we encounter curves in our work and in our lives. They're inevitable, and it's something that if we don't handle them well, people get hurt. And that's something that we have to be very conscious of and careful with as we lead and as we grow as educators. Right? And so I use this example particularly of the astronauts who just returned from the International Space Station. And if you've seen some of that story, it's been going on now for the last year, where they were stuck up there on the space station because of a malfunction. Right? And it began as an 8-day mission, but unexpected failures made it a 9-month adventure. and shortly after launch, the malfunctions began, and it left them stuck in space. Right? They were unable to dock or even return. They were in kind of, you might say, no man's land. So they had to stay in orbit, and they finally got onto the space station and were there for a much longer period of time than was in any way anticipated. And of course, what happened? Well, then the team back on the ground on Earth had to start the investigations. What happened? How did it happen? What do we do? And you've seen some of the movies around how in past orbits where they've had malfunctions and with NASA or with other agencies, and what do? They have to figure out, well, how do we solve this, right? They had to deal with the curves, right? And that took a while. It took way longer than expected, but they did. They just recently returned to Earth, and they completed the dramatic and unplanned journey, And you would think that maybe there was some tensions because, listen, I didn't plan to be up there this long. What in the world is going on around here? But these two astronauts, Wilmore and Williams, they shared stories, very interestingly, of resilience and adaptability in their post-flight interviews. And it was very noteworthy to me listening to them talk that because they just have a unique level of maturity and wisdom. I mean, they were able to turn what was a very difficult curve into an opportunity. This was the quote from Butch Wilmore. He said, "You cannot do this business without trust. You have to have ultimate trust." And for someone to step forward in these different organizations that were the ones that were involved in the manufacturing of the spacecraft and all the logistics, and they say, "Hey, I'm culpable. I was a part of this. I was part of that issue, right?" That goes a long way to maintaining trust. And that's, as they were being interviewed, they were being probed in a way to say, what were you mad about? What were you frustrated with? What are you going to do now? Would you go back? Right? That was one of the big questions. And I actually shared in the weekly encouragement for educators that we send out each Monday morning. I actually shared the interview. So if you have a chance to check that out, it was just very short, like about a minute and a half. But it was a very interesting response to the question, right? Because, there's that opportunity to throw them under the bus. There's that opportunity to kind of go into, protection mode, right? To protect yourself. But instead, there was a focus on trust. And they actually, both of these astronauts said, "I would go back in a second. But I would, obviously we would do things differently. We would try to make some adjustments. We would learn and we would improve. But that's the way life works. And that's especially true in schools, right? We're trying to figure it out. We don't have all the answers. We don't know what's coming. We have to learn how to handle the curves. Even the unexpected setbacks can bring new and positive possibilities. If you so choose, right, you can find value and fulfillment in every circumstance. I love that quote from Ralph Marston, right? Even the unexpected setbacks can bring new and positive possibilities. What's the difference? Well, it's in our mindset, right? It's how we approach the curves. We can blow through them and face the dangers. We can get through them. We can conquer them, and also learn from them. And as educators, we are the models of learners, or at least we should be, right? Our ability to adapt, to handle the curves, to see what's sometimes to get better at anticipating, to adjust and keep getting better, right? Like many of our plans for this year, or even this month, or this week, or even today, right? Interruptions, they happen. They happen often. People make decisions and things that we can't control, and yet they impact us. And that's the hard part of this job. Is it's sometimes very difficult to plan, but because we're human beings and we're working with human beings, we're at our best when we're ready. We're ready for those curves that can throw us off, and they can trigger a trust divide. They can cause us to go down a path where we start to question others' credibility and their intentions, and making assumptions and assuming the worst and right? That trust divide, once created, is sometimes difficult to restore because emotions get involved, and who's right and who's wrong, and an offense is taken, right? That's a dangerous path for educators. Sometimes it's the learning curves, right, that force us to lead outside of our comfort zone. We have to learn new things. We have new techniques, new approaches, new people. Sometimes in the latter part of the school year, a student gets added to the roster, or things, changes have to happen, and things get difficult. Right? How do we lead forward? Sometimes it's curved balls, right? If you know anything about baseball, there's the baseball season opened in the United States recently, and a pitcher with a curved ball can cause the batter to flinch, right? And even sometimes to get out of the way, because they get fooled, right? Because the ball is coming right at their body, and they want to get out of the way, and then all of a sudden it breaks off, and it can become a strike when it feels like it's going to hit the batter, right? Those curveballs are very uncomfortable, and they cause us to lose focus on what we're trying to do. But how we handle the unexpected, that's actually the most accurate revelation of our true character. How do we handle those moments? Are we ready? Are we ready to handle them with a resilience, with a responsiveness? Or do we react? Do we allow the emotions to dominate? Do we get hurt? Do we focus on us individually rather than us? Right? That's a pathway. We have choices, and as we navigate those curves, those choices, they matter and they have very specific impact. We have guidance from 1 Corinthians 13:7 says, "Love bears all things." Right? It believes all things. Love hopes all things. Love endures all things. And so when we have a love, when we have a connection with each other, then we learn to navigate the curves, even to conquer them. And we conquer them by being willing to accept those moments of feedback. We're able to adjust in our own technique. We're able to understand the bigger picture. We sustain our perspective, right? And that perspective, boy, it's a huge advantage. Our path is a curvy one with unending surprises, but we still have choices to make. The curves are inevitable, but our choices are still within our control. So we start by asking better questions. That was what the astronauts talked about in their response to the question, would you go back? They said, yeah, I would go back, but I would ask better questions. I would learn. I would pay attention to some things that I didn't know before, right? They're committed learners. And so we have to stay curious. We have to stay aware of the potential risks. We have to stay anchored, right? We ask better questions, but we also stay anchored in faith that enables sustaining a healthy perspective in the moment. It gives us a grounding, right? We see the opportunities for growth rather than falling into the endless abyss of blame, right? We're not looking to see how do we pass this on to somebody else, but instead we're trying to restore the team. We need each other. We look out for each other, and that's what love does, right? We share responsibility in the decisions that we take ownership and we move forward together, right? Because why? Because we seek to restore trust, because we can't do this work without those deep connections. We have to have trust. Trust it's the oxygen of the school ecosystem. We have to have that connection. I will tell you that, of course, as we've had the privilege of working with a wide range of learning organizations, trust is critical in any situation where we've got people gathered together. We have to look out for each other. We're gonna encounter the curves, right? And so the challenge for you then is courageously conquer the curves this week, my friend, keeping the trust that enables excellence. Because without that trust, excellence doesn't happen. Because we turn on each other. We forget each other. We begin to allow the separation to become wider and wider, and that abyss is really difficult to overcome. And there's no joy in that. And this work it's hard enough without losing that ability to collaborate and to trust and to work together to solve the problems. Listen, thank you for your commitment to that work and being able to find ways to adapt, to be able to solve the problems, for being an intelligent leader who's able to not only be really smart, but also to have a kindness and to have a respect and to have a wisdom That's really some of the characteristics that distinguish the most effective educators, and we're thankful for your commitment to growing in these ways, because it's not enough just to be smart. We have to be wise in our relationships. We have to know how to handle different points of conflict that come up, and we know, of course, that conflict, if we don't resolve it with a position of grace and of understanding the bigger picture, then it becomes something that can infect our culture. And boy, it makes it so much harder, right? So thank you for your commitment to being a part of a team that can navigate the curves and grow together. It's a privilege to be a part of your journey, and we're thankful for this privilege of sharing these stories through what we do in the Educators Among Us podcast, as well as through Educators Fellowship. And we invite you to share the story of Educators Fellowship with others in your network. We get to really just share content like this and conversations to try to spur educators on, to try to give that level of encouragement and their calling to this work, because it is hard work, and if we look out for each other and encourage each other, and we're praying for you as an educator and being able to answer that call, but also as you navigate and even conquer the curves. A coaching question to ask yourself at the end of each day: did I do my best to conquer the curves today? Did I do my best to conquer the curves today? Love them and lead them, my friend. This is Scott.
Thank you for joining us for the Educators Among Us podcast, and for your courageous commitment to this noble calling. We get you and the challenges of this work. To stay connected with this community, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and weekly encouragement at educatorsamongus.com.